There's a building with a wheelchair ramp out front. I should jump that with my bike. So, by the time I regained consciousness, Nirav and Nick, this guy, they had disappeared somewhere, and the Amefoto guys were all laying around the college campus half passed out. But when they saw me, they woke up. I was really amused at the time and acting like I was fine, so they just said, "Oh, let's get you washed off." And then they sprayed me in the face with a hose. That was awesome. When they washed away enough blood to see what my face actually looked like underneath it, they were like this. Kyusha Yoboka. So I got to go to the hospital with this guy, Kenichi, who I had only met that day. But now he's a really, really good friend. He's my Inochi no Ombujin, the guy who saved my life. I got 12 stitches, a nice scar, a 3-day stay in the hospital, and half an eye full of blood for about 2 months. But Brett, right? Brett was one of many people who came to visit me in the hospital, and he was really, really regretful that he hadn't been around to help me. This is what Brett said. Brett said, "Man, I should have been there for you. I'm so sorry. I wish someone had told me. I wish I had known about this. I mean, I know we were all drunk, but if I had only known about this, I would have pulled my shit together, and I would have been there to make sure you were okay, no matter what." Thanks, Brett. This picture surfaced later that week, to which Brett replied, "So that's why I was covered in blood when I woke up." I learned a lot of Japanese from that whole experience. I learned the word fukai, which means deep, both as in you have a very deep gash in your head, and you should never drink deeply. As my boss, who came to visit me, he put it like this: deep wa dame. At the time, we had no idea what he was saying, even though we knew that dame meant bad, or even don't. But I think now that it was his best English translation of "osake wo fukaku nomu no ga dame." I also learned the difference between omimai, to visit someone in the hospital, and omiai, the first face-to-face meeting between members of an arranged or in the arranging marriage. When you want to thank someone for bringing you flowers, furikake, and chopsticks in the hospital, you should not confuse those two words. This was also the first time I learned not to get frustrated at Japanese people for not understanding what I wanted to say. Many times I'll be one syllable off with a word, and I'm like, it's just one syllable. You really ought to know what I'm trying for, and they'll have no clue what I'm talking about. And I used to be like, come on, why don't you know? But it's not quite the same in Japanese as it is in English. It's not like somebody wanted to say Florida and said Frolida. What you accidentally said was probably a completely different, completely inappropriate word. Like you wanted to say Florida and you said Salisbury steak. And they might just be so flabbergasted by that it's hard to continue on in the conversation. But the most important thing that I learned was my first Yoji Jukugo, which you know are my favorite part of studying Japanese now. It was Jigo Jitoku. Jigo Jitoku. Your work, your profit. Which sounds great, but it means you did it, now deal with it. You made your bed. You've got no one to blame but yourself, kind of thing. But yeah, back to Brett. When I got out of the hospital, they said that I shouldn't spend nights alone because I'd had a pretty rough head trauma, and if I were to suddenly get ill, I should be around someone who could contact a doctor. So I crashed at Brett's. And Brett, you should know, is famous for negoto. Ne is from neru, to sleep, and goto is the koto from kotoba, language or words. Brett is a sleep talker and a sleep doing stuffer. He used to say he wished he had a video camera because sometimes he'd wake up and his room would be rearranged. But on this particular night, whatever weird lucid dream he was having involved me needing to go back to the hospital. Somehow he became convinced that I was going through some after effects of the injury that were life-threatening, and he was determined that he was not going to fail me in my time of need. So it's 3 o'clock in the morning. I'm just out of the hospital, sleeping the uneasy sleep of the strangely medicated, and still pretty shaken up about the whole cracking my head open thing. And Brett, sleeping in the futon 2 or 3 tatami mats away, leaps bolt upright out from under his mofu, crosses the tatami in a single bound, stands over me, and expresses his concern for my well-being. How does he do this, you ask? Hey, Jeff, are you feeling okay? Hey, Jeff, wake up. We need to get you to the hospital. Hey, Jeff. I'm worried that the symptoms you're displaying belie some serious complications of your recent concussion. No, I wake up at 3 in the morning with Brett standing over me going, "Jeff, you're gonna die!" And I was so scared and confused that I couldn't say anything but, "Why?" And instantly Brett realizes that he's not making any sense, snaps out of it, straightens up, looks around and goes, "Oh, never mind," and goes and gets back into his futon. I couldn't sleep for the rest of the night and most of the next day. And that was how Brett and I became the very best of friends. And now he's gone. Oh well. I'm sure he'll come back sometime. He better come back. He left half of his stuff in my apartment. Thanks for listening. I hope you got something out of all that. See you next time.